Well, hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another randomizer race here during the... I was going to say like spring 2024 league, but it's the 2024 league at this point. So, hello, everybody. We're here taking a look at the bracket. My name is Jay Hobbs, and I am joined by Uki. Uki, hello.
Hello, Hobbs. Yeah, the bracket, we're actually going to go into losers round 2 matchup today with Met versus Dewey.
Yeah,
So
you can see it there at the bottom of the screen. I believe that is the matchup with the label Y. Yeah, we have Met versus Dewey. We can see them getting ready to kick things off here. We're going to actually get started pretty quickly. We're a little bit early of a start time, which is always excellent. And coming up, we actually have a second match coming up after this one. Other losers round match between, I believe, BD Bunk and Jared Weakstrike coming up after this one as well.
That would be correct. Yep, that should be almost immediately after this match. I think it's scheduled for 8 p.m. Eastern, but we will see.
Yeah, it'll probably be quite soon after. But yeah, these two players, I don't think people expected either of them really to end up in the losers round this early here in losers round 2. But in fact, for Dewey, it was losers round 1, and I actually don't quite remember for Met if it was round 1 or 2 that they got knocked down here. But either way, we are kicking things off with a match that is... this bracket is just terrifying. Like, the losers bracket is not how I would have expected it to be at all. And I feel like everybody is a little surprised by how this league has been going, which is always kind of what you want, in my opinion. I think that makes things interesting, makes it really fun.
Absolutely. Most of this top 16, actually, I would say all of this top 16, very talented players and racers. So it's kind of not really upset specials, as people would think. All of these players have very consistent gameplay, which is what got them here, and they will definitely be, forces to be reckoned with, even coming from the losers side here.
Absolutely. All right, both players jumping into Pride Lanes first here, as we expect. Taking a look at the trackers, we can see that there are no blue worlds to start with, so everything's going to be on the table from the beginning here. And no glides to start with either, but they are going to have 2 quick runs and 3 aerial dodges once they get out of Pride Lands, and a nice little high jump to boot as well. Met with a very slight early lead here. Actually, a little bit more than slight. I'm kind of a little surprised at how this ended up spreading out, but I believe Dewey grabs some more of the filler chests early on.
Yes, he does. And the other thing that I was going to mention was Magnet Burst was in the opening 3 chests, as well as we had the Genie Lamp already for that. So yeah, so that's going to be a big push here early. But these guys going to, do the pretty standard opening of Pride Lands, at least to the Oasis and seeing Simba, which, I mean, makes perfect sense. The movement here isn't hindered because you are Lion Sora the entire time, and so it would be a good thing to do this while you're still looking for movement, and you can find movement here that would help you everywhere else.
Yeah, and to note, Dewey is not grabbing every filler chest, it looks like, just grabbing some of them, some of the faster ones along the way, so that's already a little bit of a change that we've seen from Dewey in the bracket play here. Met, however, is skipping all of them. It's kind of just player preference between these two strategies. And we did see an experience boost picked up by both, and now the first glide of the seed. So that's another reason you go to Pride Lands, is you hope that you can come out with a little bit better movement than you started with. And that's going to be the case here for both our racers.
Absolutely.
Met getting a turnaround very briefly there before heading back into the cutscene.
Yep. And Met's going to be very quick to get out of Pride Lands at this point. Valor form in the Oasis area, so...
And it turns the world blue, so that is... Pride Lands is done there.
That is huge. It's a very quick... kind of shotgun and done, but a lot of racers do like to see that. It looks like Double picked up Shock Charm Plus early, so he gets some early Thunder magic, that extra damage boost is going to help him push content a little bit faster.
Yeah, always great to get a Thunder boost on that armor, but we'll have to see. Still needs the Thunder to begin with. Yeah. Now, obviously, a hint for Pride Lanes would be massive for these players. A Cure and Valor Form limits your options to be hinted from that down to 5 worlds. So that would be pretty big to get any kind of hint there, even if it's just to eliminate 5 of those worlds. That would actually maybe be more helpful because of Hollow Bastion being in play there, but still.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hollow Bastion, I would think that's the biggest one that you would want to get rid of if you're going to get rid of a world, because that is 18 different items that point to that world.
Yeah, so. And I guess really it's only 4 worlds, because not 5 that a hint would limit it to, because of 100 Acre being one of those worlds. And we know in these settings that 100 Acre cannot have a proof. For anyone who's unfamiliar with these settings, the players have to grab 3 proofs in order to open the door to the end, but they actually start with the Promise Charm, so they don't have to fight all the way through the world that never was if they don't need to for a proof. The proofs are all located at the end of the story in any given world. So whatever world they end up in, they will be at the end of the story. They know where the proof will be within that world. It's more a matter of figuring out which worlds the proofs are in, thanks to these path-based hints, which we won't go like super into detail in because they're a little complex here. We're going to assume most people have been following along a little bit. But yeah, they will be trying to figure out what worlds the proofs are in, and then where any world locks that might be blocking their access to the end of the story in those worlds might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now we also know that the other charm came up on levels. It was level 7, and the levels are dead. Also, the magnet that we currently have from Halloween Town was found in Dr. Finkelstein's lab.
Yeah, so great to have a magnet early. I feel like, I don't know about you, but my preference of like, what spell do I want to get first every seed is a ranged magic, so like a Blizzard or a Thunder. But then Reflect and Magnet are both right up there next after those. Absolutely.
And I would say that also argumentative based on your preference on your early routing. Some people would much prefer that early magnet just before anything else if they can get it.
Yeah, Magnet 1 unfortunately doesn't quite give you the same kind of upgrade that like Magnera does, but it is of course still helpful to have. And neither player went to Agrabah after Pride Lanes. They both have been going with this kind of metagame that's been evolving more recently of heading into Halloween Town first to get the stats, and because the rooms are a bit smaller for the most part in Halloween Town, so you might try to get some better movement before going into somewhere like Agrabah with a bit bigger rooms to move around in. And then both players going to Olympus Coliseum because they've got a glide that's right next door.
Yep. And we find Torn Page. We find the Thunder that will definitely help double here with that Shock Charm Plus. But then you also have the fact that there was also another level of high jump. So
yeah, the high jump pretty inconsequential at this point. Not going to be like that big of a deal, especially with some of the skip being blocked that you would otherwise want it for.
And Met just finished first 3 of PR and found very quickly Combo Master and Stitch.
Yeah, Stitch always fantastic to find early, especially when you've already found an experience boost, because you know at that point that that is going to be one potential way for you to be able to EXP boost the screens fight if you so choose. We're getting a little bit of a deviation here. Dewey popping into Twilight Town, probably just going to shotgun this one and head out from there. I don't think we'll be seeing Dewey go through Station at the moment, unless maybe they stumble across a final form here.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it with either final form. Definitely going to see a lot of movement from Met, potentially just going into screens quickly and getting some levels.
Yeah, that is wild. And apologies for our technical difficulties here. A little bit of stream buffering going on, but we'll carry on as the streams resume here.
A double picked up a Trinity limit, so, quick station fight with the Trinity skip is there.
Ooh, does
and a glide.
Yeah. I still would expect Dewey to wait on a potential final form, even if it comes down to forcing it before going through station. Even if like the ultimate play ends up being to use Trinity Limit after using some final form. It's just such a convenient place to get quite a few levels on it early on. But we'll see. The option is certainly there. Met with that Torn Page is going to head into 100 Acre Wood, check front 6 chests here, and then we'll see if Met opts for the play to, do the first mini game for like, I think it's like a 45-second investment or a point. We'll see if Met is going for that or if Met's just going to leave. Is indeed going to do that. So Met looking to get an extra progression point here to try to help reveal that first hint.
Yeah, and both of these racers going into the locations they are double very quickly following in Met's previous steps, now going into Space Paranoids, while Met just gets to sit here and relax, like you said, for that about 45 seconds, going through the Piglet minigame. So we will see quite a bit of a movement from both players once they are out of these respected areas.
Yeah, and the advantage for Met is Met had built up a little bit of a lead from the, I think primarily just like faster menuing and just skipping those filler chests. So had built up a little bit of lead, gets to kind of take this time investment. We'll see if Dewey ends up doing the same thing or not when they come around to 100 Acre on, in the GOA. But now Disney Castle is Met's next target. Makes total sense, and unless the world goes blue very early, we will probably see Met go all the way through escorts here and head into Timeless River. Now that being said, I don't think we really mentioned that Space Paranoids did turn blue with that magnet, so screens is an optional investment in this seed for sure, if you end up doing that for EXP boosting purposes. But hey, they've got Stitch, and now as of Disney Castle for Met, have Explosion. With a pretty decent magic stat here, especially on Dewey's side. So they definitely could do some experience boosting early on if they end up wanting to.
Yeah, absolutely. And Met now looking to continue pushing the mouse. So left the world real quick, came back in, taking advantage of the way that the GOA moves you around from checkpoint to checkpoint. Because it is faster prior to having Glide 3, to just simply exit the world after entering the courtyard, and then come back because you will end up directly in the room with Minnie.
Yeah, and I do think that's specifically because of loadless time as well. I'm not sure if it's actually faster like real time, but obviously loadless is what matters here for the race.
Yes.
Thankfully for both our players here today, loadless is that top timer for each of them, so that is your direct comparison if things begin to skew apart between the two as we go further into this race.
Yep, and Met's doing that mini escort through the main throne room, so that is going to be a quick and easy. How far into Timeless River do you feel Met may go from here? I believe past Pete probably would be reasonable. It's another progression point very quickly.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the standard opening here of grabbing all of the chests that are easily available at the beginning and doing the past Pete fight. I don't think we're going to see Met like do an early Windows play. That would be just a little bit surprising. Now, Dewey does have the advantage right now in terms of movement. Still has that level 2 glide, is able to kind of zip around a little bit quicker than Met in some of these rooms. It's not going to make like the biggest of differences, but if Met holds off doing Twilight Town for a while, then Dewey's going to hold on to that advantage for a little bit longer.
Yep, and Dewey following suit very quickly, getting into Disney Castle, now getting ready to do the mouse push, and we've got Met starting the Pete fight, going straight into Valor form in order to simply sit there and juggle Pete and just finish him off without too much issue.
Yeah, this gets you a free level 2 on Valor as well, so definitely makes a lot of sense here. Of course, they can get Valor form up to level 3 at the moment, but no further. And Met gonna grab the last few chests of import here, and let's see. draw from that ability chest. So nothing major coming out of Disney Castle besides that explosion earlier. But of course, explosion is an extremely useful ability.
Now, one thing we do need to note that we do have our first hint, and it's Port Royal as Path of All Lights.
Yeah, that's actually quite nice. Like, I feel like, well, it can be nice or it can be bad, like to get a Path to All Lights early. Because if you go to Port Royal, finish off the first visit, and end up turning that world blue, you've narrowed all of your worlds down to a direct subset. But if there's a lot of items in Port Royal, or you just can't end up turning the world blue, then that Path to All Lights doesn't tell you quite as much as some of the other hints could.
Absolutely.
Picture found by Met here in Agrabah.
Yeah, I feel like you either want a Path of All Lights or a Path to No Lights, because like I think a lot of people, they may or may not understand. Sometimes the Path to No Lights great because it gives you the information on where not to go. So very quickly you can eliminate worlds that way.
Yeah, Path to No Light is probably my favorite hint to get, actually, especially early on. But a Path to All Lights, if it had popped up on something like Pride Lands in this case, because it's already blue, would be absolutely massive. So it's all situational for sure. But we're finally seeing that Agrabah play, and we are going to get another drive form here in the shape of Limit form for Met. Excellent to get that one. Helps out if you end up needing to go to Simulated Twilight Town or just want to use it in a bunch of places. The nice thing about Limit Form is that since it only requires Sora, you can kind of level it wherever you want. And that is very helpful to have sometimes.
Yeah, and like you said, very good for not only Simulated Twilight Town, but also very good and useful for a world that never was climbed. So,
yeah, true.
because there's a lot of pieces of that where Sora is the only character in the fight. So it's one of the few times that form definitely shines more than any other. But even then, Limit Form is really strong, just regardless as a tool.
Mm-hmm. And the first Fire of the Seed is found in Agrabah as well. It looks like so far the main difference between our two racers is just Dewey having done that Twilight Town shotgun, grabbing a glide and Trinity Limit.
And they have Magnega because Met just got it on the Abu push. So you have Stitch Magnega. Those screens are looking a little juicier, but Met also looking very quickly to push Hollow Bastion because Bailey fight, or the whole Bailey fight, is just going to melt with that.
Also Bailey is a great place to use Limit Form in the early game, and it is another progression point for you, as well as a few checks here in the first visit. So definitely something I always like to include in my kind of shotgunning phase here, and even going with a few Valor hits there and then reverting, knowing that they had enough drive gauges built up.
And a membership card. Yeah. Wow. So now the real question becomes, how big of a shotgun does Hollow Bastion become? Because you very easily can push to Ansem Study, getting quite a few checks because of the fact that you have the membership card.
I think there's really no reason why Met wouldn't do that here unless the world turns blue. I would fully expect Met to go all the way up to Ansem Study, potentially even to Dancers, though that's a little bit more risky, like a little bit more of an investment there, because you have a couple fights that could potentially kill you with these early levels. But regardless, I would expect to see Met go through the posture and through the corridors and into Ansem's Study. We'll have to see, though. Maybe he decides to hop on over to Twilight Town or Beast Castle first, but I would expect him to just turn around right now. Yeah, and absolutely.
He does. Dewey in on the Abu push here, so this should be very quick for Dewey.
And Dewey could make the choice here of going to Beast Castle instead of going to Hollow Bastion. I feel like they're often quite similarly placed in a lot of priority lists for people, and that is indeed what Dewey's going to do, is head into Beast Castle. Has Valor Form as well, can either decide to use Trinity Limit or just take damage here to end this quickly, or go Valor Form for some free hits to try to level this thing up as high as potentially level 4. Does get it to level 3, nothing massive so far on that drive. Yeah, but and level 4 could hold something. No, just Elusive Crystal.
Yeah, and at this point, Double really has almost no reason to not push all the way to Beast Room. He's got a Trinity Limit, which is going to help with an easy one cycle on Thresholder, potentially. And then there's just a lot of progression and a lot of items that are pretty, free after Thresholder.
Yeah, if the world's not blue, there's really no reason to leave before that point. Potentially all the way through, Shadowstalker Darkthorn. But yeah, Met continuing through Hall of Bastion here. Nothing massive coming up. I can't remember if that cure was from the Bailey fight or was from
the cure was from the Bailey fight.
It was from Bailey. Okay, but either way, cure's nothing to write home about. But the other advantage here is if Met does decide to go through this next fight, he will be the first to get a second hint here. Of course, Dewey is going to get some progression points of his own on his way through Beast Castle right now. But we will see if Met is just going to grab the chests here, or check for their quality and leave, or if Met's going to try to push through with limited tools. Now, Met doesn't have Trinity Limit. That is something that would help a lot in this next fight, but it looks like he's going for it anyways. Maybe making use of that Magnega, potentially with a Stitch or a Drive form to follow up. It's gonna, Magnet Thunders, and then into I have to assume, it's a Genie summon. I can't tell because of the mods. I was like, what? They just summoned. Going with Genie, had to aerial dodge to avoid probably getting one shot right there by the Crimson Jazz. That was pretty slick.
Yep, and now just a little bit of cleanup here to finish off this Corridors fight. So.
And Olympus Coliseum is on the path to connection, so thankfully that eliminates Torn Page Worlds for 2 of our proofs, as well as eliminating OC for 2 of them on top of that.
And I would say with Met's movement, I believe very easily has enough movement to core skip here, so might be a little touch and go, but...
it's a little dicey.
I mean, it is aerial dodge 3 with the quick run 2. So
yeah, I usually like to have at least quick run 3 for that, but it is certainly possible with quick run 2, and maybe even just by high jumping out there or something. So we'll see if Met goes for that or just opts to leave for now. It's just going to take the shortcut out. Meanwhile, Final Form picked up by Dewey here in Beast Castle. On top of a torn page earlier, so that is really nice for Dewey. Yeah,
that's going to be huge because now that's going to mean, going into and aerial dodge 4 now for Dewey, but that will mean that Dewey can now do Hollow Bastion, get final levels there, can do Twilight Town, getting final levels, and there's a lot of content that Dewey now gets to take a lot of advantage of, and having a fire, just even a single fire, is super useful for burning through content.
Yeah, and gets another Blizzard from Beast Castle here as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Dewey just goes straight to Twilight Town from here for going Hollow Bastion 1 for a little bit, and just heads all the way through TT2, but maybe not. It's kind of really up to the racer at that point. There's not like a clear advantage to doing one thing versus the other. Met does get through the Dancers fight to get some more progression points and is heading back out now. We'll probably continue on to Beast Castle, or the World That Never Was. I don't think Met had not hopped in for those chests yet.
Yeah, and now Double's looking to just finish this first visit of Beast Castle. Makes perfect sense with Final Form. Shadowstalker becomes very easy, and then Darkthorn becomes kind of a almost trivial fight to an extent with the stats that he's got currently.
Yeah, I mean, either way, the main thing is you finish off the visit. You don't have to be sitting there wondering, do I need to find the Beast Claw, or would the world have just turned blue on the boss? And you get those progression points, which I think it's hard in Randomizer to make objective measurements between racers even within the same seed. But I think probably the 2 strongest objective measurements we have, statistics-wise, are the rate at which you gain progression points for path hints specifically, and the number of checks per minute that you're accomplishing. Now, obviously, we can't really do the checks per minute here live in our heads and everything, but that whoever's in the lead of progression points at the time kind of gives you an idea of the progression points per minute. So right now we see the two are even, with Met now kind of crossing over some of the stuff that Dewey did before, but Met has held that lead in progression points so far.
Yeah, and I think a big thing here for Met is now going into Twilight Time, getting that that glide. So now the movement differentials kind of gone for Dewey right now, but
yeah, Dewey holds that extra aerial dodge, but that's not something that's going to make a meaningful difference. And it does look like Met's going to use that Trinity limit and just get through the station fight, because Met doesn't have final form at the moment. Obviously, Dewey's the one who grabbed that from Beast Castle, and Met's just going to kind of give up this opportunity to this location for leveling final, and just try to see what is further on in Twilight Town.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you got Double going into Hollow Bastion, now making the push over to Bailey. Kind of can expect the same thing out of Double that we just saw Met do. Now, I wonder, with some of the extra tools that Double has, having the Blizzard, having a few other, forms of movement, and the final form, does Double potentially do core compared to Met?
I don't think I don't think Dewey's stats are good enough to go through the fights in core. I'm sure he could. But it might not be very simple. And then doing the actual core skip, that's a possibility. Absolutely. Yeah. But we'll have to see. I think Twilight Town is the bigger priority for him here, and that's where he's going right now. Cause,
exactly.
Yeah, being able to level final form while progressing a world means that you are able to get more progression points. And like I said, progression points per minute is kind of the strongest metric we have right now. Met found the first finishing plus of the seed at the bottom of the tower, so thankfully for Dewey fans out there, Dewey's not going to be far behind that one. But Met did continue onwards, and this is something I was curious about. I wasn't sure if Met would push this or not, because obviously they have the picture, so going through the top of the tower and then Twilight Town 2 is going to help get some progression points and whatnot. For those who are not familiar, the later the visit, the higher the greater number of points each kind of story thing gives you. But Met's doing this without the final form, and obviously for these fights he's in right now, it doesn't matter. But for something like the TT2 fight, the station fight that he already went through, those are the kinds of things that you often try to wait and hope for final form first, like we're seeing out of Dewey. So while I think this is it makes perfect sense for Dewey to be here right now, I'm just slightly shocked by Met doing it, even though it is still a perfectly fine play.
Yeah, now I could see Met just doing TT1, prepping TT2, and holding that off until he gets final form.
Potentially. Does get the simulated Twilight Town hint now, so that is always kind of scary to get early, I feel like. And got a money pouch, and is going to be using that to get a Goofy limit and some ethers, and then is heading into STT.
Yeah, at this point, you have Trinity limit, you have a fire, you have limit form. Those are the three biggest tools that you want for a quick clear of STT as a world.
Here is the problem, though. STT is logically not able to have a proof already, if I am not mistaken, because limit form and valor form have both been found, and neither world has been hinted yet, and all other things have been hinted at least once. So Simulated Twilight Town could not have a proof. Twilight Town can only barely still have a proof. The ice cream would have to be in Port Royal. So pushing this is good for knowledge, because you have a peace hint and you're going to be able to finish this world. So you're more or less going to be able to guarantee you turn it blue, unless Data Roxas holds something. But at the same time, this content is guaranteed not going to be required for the proof itself. It could be required for a world unlock, of course, but it's not going to be required for strictly the proof. So it's a little bit of a questionable decision here.
Actually, I think it's a great decision. And if you look at the tracker real quick, the biggest, or we've got up on the screen our proof tracker. Currently, currently we know where proof of peace is. Just based on everything else, we know that proof of peace has to be in Beast Castle. So very quickly, that's going to make it to where is Beast Claw here. If Beast Claw is here, then that's huge. You go into STT, you get Beast Claw, you get out. Now, it could potentially only have a Reflect.
Yeah, or a Cure.
Or Cure, but that's still going to be, extremely helpful because now you're eliminating those checks that are left.
And there's the Beast Claw. So it worked out here for Met, and you can actually see Met deciding to leave now. And that is a good point. I do still think, personally, I would, not quite evaluate it as high, because if you're going through something like Port Royal, or even Beast Castle 1, which Met hasn't done yet, before STT, you still have that same chance of getting a Beast Claw without going through a world that is guaranteed to not have a proof. So it worked out here for Met, but I think there could maybe be, slightly better plays there. Meanwhile, we're seeing Dewey head through Hollow Bastion 2. I actually don't think, did Dewey do TT2? We were so focused on Met there for a second.
I do not believe so.
Yeah, I think he left. Yeah. So that is a little surprising. I would have expected Dewey to get all the way through what he could of Twilight Town at the moment, but I think he left at the base of the tower.
Yes, he did. And we can tell that by looking at his tracker.
Yeah, and is going to be doing that that core skip there. Does have Combo Master, so made it a little bit easier. And now heading through the steam vents. Met's going to be kind of catching up on content that we've already seen from Dewey for a little bit here, so we can kind of focus in on the left side a little bit.
Yeah, and I think oh wow, that was clean how quickly Dewey moved his way through, and taking advantage of the aerial dodge 4 to just immediately jump into final, jump up, and come out of form to get an extra aerial dodge.
Yeah, actually got a very convenient drive gauge right there as well, because that means that he's just going to be able to pop into a summon or, Valor or that newly acquired Wisdom form on his way out. Does not need to go any further because Hollow Bastion is now blue, so that's some information that Dewey's probably going to hold over Met for a little while. Met going to be, a little, it's a little unfortunate for Met that he was not able to do that core skip earlier, or at least didn't feel comfortable with it. However, Hollow Bastion, I believe, has already been eliminated, it just got eliminated by turning blue, so it will not be a proof candidate.
Yeah, and at this point, we've got quite a few worlds left, but you've got three unique worlds that are path of non-existence still, so your proof could be in either TT, GR, or HT, but the number of proofs left, or number of items pointing to those, are very minimal left. So
a Space Paranoid's hint would help eliminate a little bit, it would help eliminate Twilight Town, but the World That Never Was already being eliminated as well, and I think that's just due to how many hints have already been found for each item. Yeah, that is why you could eliminate the World That Never Was. And
actually, at this point, Port Royal and Halloween Town, their unlock has to be in Port Royal because the only other things that would point are already revealed without a hint pointing toward them.
Yeah, they could also be in Agrabah or Halloween Town. They could be in somewhere where there's a magnet, I think, right?
They can't.
They did find Peter Pan, that's right. Yes. Yeah, okay. So it would have to be there. So another case for doing Port Royal, granted, I think Port Royal has to have the world lock for literally wherever non-existence is. So that is a very good reason to be doing that right now. But in the heat of the moment, while you're playing through and trying to be as efficient as possible, it is very hard to make that kind of deduction.
Absolutely.
So Dewey, I think, probably just saw, hey, I've got Magnega, Land of Dragons is still available, I have a hint that it has no path to the light, I might as well hop in here and try to eliminate some more of these torn page worlds from my connection possibilities.
Yeah, which is a great thing, but at the same time, Double taking full advantage of this and just immediately leveling up Wisdom form. Got it to Wisdom 5 during the missions, so very quick and easy there. And then now doing the mountain climb and just running right through it almost immediately.
Yeah, missions are a very handy place to level Valor and Wisdom. So not surprising there that we saw Dewey take advantage. And Met able to finish off Beast Castle 1. Is he going to just turn around, head right into Beast Castle 2, or opt for another destination? We'll find out. Oh, that's right. There's still the boss that's going to die very quickly. The second phase. My brain was so focused on the one that actually, in my opinion, the one that matters more for getting the trying to save a little bit of time.
Yeah, because Darkthorn does kind of just go down to a beast limit very easily, as Met shows on screen. And Shadowstalker, the boss before it, ends up just being a bigger nuisance if you don't kill him quickly, because he just starts floating around and going into objects. It just becomes kind of a pain to chase him down. So
yeah, Dewey heading into the summit fight here for Land of Dragons should be using this opportunity to level limit form, and that is exactly what we're going to see. Going to take full advantage of that. Now, I don't think Dewey has a money pouch, because the only one that we've seen so far that I know of was at the top of Twilight Town 1. So you can see Dewey even trying to get hit to take advantage of the MP rage that is naturally built into limit form to refill that MP instead of utilizing ethers. This slows down your grinding a little bit. It means that Dewey's probably not going to be able to max out this form by any means, but does obviously help you conserve that very valuable resource when you don't have a money pouch.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing that could be done here would be, as long as he keeps just a touch of MP coming out of the form, could have very easily
refilled that drive by using magnets. Yeah,
but still got to limit 4 and back into limit form, so gonna get another hit toward that limit 5 as he finishes up that minute fight.
And Dewey gets a hint for the World That Never Was for connection and peace, so might end up getting kind of baited by that one. We know almost confidently the connection world lock could be there, but otherwise that world is not a kind of high value destination right now. So hopefully that it does not kind of pull Dewey away from the rest of the logic from places like Port Royal or Simulated Twilight Town. But we can see for now Met is in Beast Castle 2, is going to be looking to finish off this world entirely. Neither player doing much with their tracker in terms of indicating, where they might be thinking the proofs are, but they're probably just locked in and focused on keeping that stuff in their brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Dewey's already going into Shan Yu right now, so this should be another, I feel like, relatively quick fight for Shan Yu. Zaldin can be a little trickier, I think, of the two, but you do have Beast limit to kind of help with damage output on Zaldin.
Yeah, Zaldin actually has the capacity to be the faster fight because you have to wait on that power-up phase from Shan Yu. But in the, most cases, like we're seeing in this individual case as well, Shan Yu's going to be faster here. And of course, I don't think either runner has Flare Force, which is another way that you could end up making that Zaldin fight significantly faster.
Yeah.
Land of Dragons finished for Dewey with no additional information, no important items found in that world. So unfortunate for Dewey, a gamble to try to eliminate some worlds that did not pay off for him, and is going to hop into the Torn page just to try to check those few chests, and we'll have to come up with a new destination. In the meantime, Met is finishing up Zaldin here, getting another set of jumps, and should be able to finish things off with this set. No drive forms to be able to hop into available at the moment due to that drive gauge being down to 0, but I believe these jumps are going to just take care of the boss. Wow, this is doing like actually no damage.
I mean, their strength stat is absolutely garbage, honestly.
Well, the bigger consideration is reaction boost. They must not have any reaction boosts, or at least very, very few. But thankfully, Met was able to pop those ethers beforehand and use the limit there with Beast to finish that one off. Gets the proof of peace as we expected, and the world turns blue, so no data Zaldin today. Dewey going over to the world that never was. For the Dewey fans, what you got to hope for here is that there is a world lock that is required for proof of connection to be locked in this world somewhere, because otherwise this is unfortunately, as we know because of the Beast Claw location, this is not going to be the most advantageous play for him at the moment.
But Dewey making very quick work of Roxas using Ragnarok, and the reason for using Ragnarok is because the shots off of it play off your magic stat, while some things like ours and Strike Raid will use your strength stat, and your strength stat in the seed currently is very worrisome.
Yeah, doing the world that never was without a reflect as well is always quite risky, but I think a lot of players have had to do that. A lot of players in the bracket here have had to do that plenty of times and are familiar with it. Now, the kind of saving grace, oh wow, and there is a reflect for Dewey, so that's fantastic. The saving grace for Dewey here is that Met is doing some content that we know for sure to be completely useless for him, invaluable. There are no checks, there are no important items on this side of Hollow Bastion, so unfortunately for Met, this is not going to result in anything more than a place to level wisdom form, a form that he does not have.
But Dewey now taking advantage of this climb up toward Zigbar and just getting a bunch of XP, getting levels very quickly, taking advantage of the EXP boost.
Yeah, is going to continue through the elevator here, even though the reflect did turn the world blue. So it is great for Dewey that the bait of the world that never was could not last very long. And with that world turning blue, with finding that reflect, we are able to lock in Disney Castle as that proof of connection world because of its overlapping with the Torn Page worlds, the Torn Page and the Reflect worlds. So Disney Castle is the destination for Dewey now. He has made the same realization, and will be probably, if I had to imagine, I think that we'll see Dewey searching for the Beast Claw after this via the peace hints, and it's just a matter of does he end up going to Port Royal or to Simulated Twilight Town. I expressed earlier why I thought Port Royal makes more sense in this case, because it could also have its own unlock or the Halloween Town unlock. In fact, we know it has to have one of those, but he might go for STT, and obviously we know that the Beast Claw is actually there, so it is the quote-unquote more correct play if you knew where everything was.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is based on the information. You have the most to gain from doing Port Royal. We as an audience know, because Met found Beast Claw so quickly in STT, that the STT play is still perfectly fine though, and it's a very quick, in and out. So that's the other thing to consider. But Dewey is pushing Disney Castle here, so which makes perfect sense, because as we have already stated, that reflects gave us the last bit of information. Disney Castle being our proof of connection world.
Yeah, and for Met's case here, it's unfortunate that he didn't go back and do core skip or something, but at the same time, when you see a bunch of connection hints pop up, it's a Torn Page world. It's understandable to go with Hollow Bastion first. It has a lot of hints. You see a bunch of hints popping up. You're thinking okay, maybe it's there. But yeah, unfortunately for Met, not paying off with that one. and now heading into Port Royal, so going to be looking for one of those unlocks, either the Port Royal or Halloween Town 1.
Yeah, and Dewey now finishing up here. Finds out 100 acres, Path of No Light.
Which, nothing's been found there yet, so nothing probably will be found there, if I had to guess.
And I mean, and at this point, like we said publicly, we know that PR is where that remaining world unlock is, and it's going to be the piece that probably points us to our destination for this third proof that we, as a collective, do not know yet.
Yeah, now there is nothing stopping both the Skill and Crossbones and the Bone Fist from being here, so it could still not narrow things down, but it's less likely. It's more likely that only one of them will be here. And the thing is, I still maintain that like the runners might not have put that part together yet. That is still quite a difficult thing to do while you're going through this very quickly, to not only narrow down all of your proof worlds, but also narrow down the world unlocks, and on top of that, having it all come together so quickly, because so far this is shaping up to be one of the faster seeds, maybe even one of the fastest seeds on these settings.
Yeah, I mean, we've already had 2 races be sub-hour. In fact, I believe it was Met's last race that Ragnoth ended up winning right at a sub-1 hour. So it is very much this is a fast, another fast seed. We got Met pushing into the Port Royal minute fight, and now taking advantage of that in order to get Valor levels.
And we're seeing Dewey follow suit into Port Royal as well. So right now, I would say, like, even though Met and Dewey both have 1 proof each, Dewey is probably in a slightly more favorable position at the moment. It's hard to say because like Met got the Beast Claw, which could be a bit of a hunt for Dewey, but at the same time, the most likely places for Dewey to hunt it are this world, which we know he has to do anyways, and then STT, where it actually is. So it's probably not going to be too bad, whereas Met has still not narrowed down that connection world yet, because of not turning that Hollow Bastion blue and not getting a reflect from the world that never was. Plus, Met has no reflect. Like, that is still... These players are very skilled, but that is very hard to do, to play the game without reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the other thing to think about, Hobbs. If it ends up being Halloween Town, that world unlock could be in the second visit, and that would mean a blind hunt for the Skill and Crossbones.
Yeah, it could be. That is definitely something that could still happen here. And most of the checks for Port Royal are in the first visit, so I would expect it to be there. But it has more in its second visit than a lot of places. And there it is on both sides.
Yep.
Okay. So Skill and Crossbones means Port Royal is very likely to be the location for proof of non-existence. It's still not guaranteed yet because this world is not blue and the Bone Fist has not been found. But either way, it means they're going to be able to get where they need to go for the proof. The Bone Fist would have to be here. They can do the whole world now. So there's not going to be a blind hunt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Met popping into limit form to knock the enemies away there, since he doesn't have to reflect. Gonna have to hop on out of it, but still has 4 drive to his name, so sitting at 8 drive gauges right now.
Yep, double leveling up forms in the minute fight as well. Yeah, it's very low here.
Oh, Met gets very lucky that there's a reflect here. I mean, it was quite likely there was going to be one, I guess, but there could have just been a torn page. Like a torn page and a cure or something. But yeah, Met getting kind of lucking out and getting a reflect here. Dewey will end up having a Reflera by the end of this visit, which is going to be a little bit better for final fights, but the main thing is having a reflect over no reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a Sword of the Ancestor on Barbosa.
And then, as we're seeing chat point out for us here, the Sora's Heart hint just popped up as well, which does guarantee Port Royal for the last proof as opposed to leaving, Halloween Town still a possibility.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. So we now know where all 3 of our proofs are. Now let's just see how quickly these runners get to their finish line here. I would honestly...
noting, I still don't think Met knows where connection is, and I think Met could get quite baited by something like that, Sword of the Ancestor that they just got.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. If Met ends up going into the world that never was and finds that reflect and sees that it kills it off very quickly, then that would be, the piece that would probably give him the edge here. But I mean, it's still a pretty even race here.
Yeah, I mean, right now for Met, Land of Dragons looks really good for proof of connection. Like, Disney Castle is still on the table because of the reflect here in Port Royal, but you've got 2 items pointing to Land of Dragons here in the World Never Was, or I mean in Port Royal, and now a Torn Page too, which does point to both of them. But getting that Sword of the Ancestor, it's gonna be a very potential Land of Dragons in Met's mind. So I'm very curious with whether Met chooses to go to Disney Castle or to Land of Dragons next. I think that could potentially decide this race, although it will depend on how quickly Dewey is able to find Beast Claw as well.
Something to think about. Thunder doesn't point to LOD, and it was pointed out, or it points to LOD, but Thunder is in OC, and OC points only to connection. And that's actually what we were saying. Yeah.
That's exactly why I think like Met might think it's LOD right now.
Yeah.
Because the Thunder World's the only one that it actually I think for Met even OC is maybe still on the table as well. But if you've got the world unlocked for a world, you're probably gonna head there first.
Yeah.
But yeah, LOD, Olympus Coliseum, and Pride Lands are all pointed by Thunder. And the Pride Lands is already blue, so that leaves it down to the other 2 worlds. It's looking far more likely that in fact, actually, I think OC is potentially eliminated by just the number of connection hints. If I'm looking, maybe not quite yet, but it's certainly looking more like a Torn Page world, and so I would expect Met to lean more heavily on the 2 Torn Page worlds that are still available to his view of the logic right now. Whereas Dewey should know where everything is. Like,
well, yeah, he should know where everything is, and he should also
except the Beast Claw.
Well, but the thing is that now that hint at STT could very easily point Dewey into that's where he's going to go.
Oh yeah, I think I fully expect Dewey is going to just do all of the necessary things to beat the seed from this point onward. Unless Data Luxord has something, and maybe Dewey would do that next. But I think more likely than not, Dewey is going to go from here to Simulated Twilight Town and then to Beast Castle right away. Whereas Met, it is a big question mark. Land of Dragons, Disney Castle, or Olympus Coliseum. I think Olympus Coliseum is the less likely of those 3 by a significant margin. But that play from Met, that decision could end up deciding this race.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we see Dewey is ahead on progression points at this point in the game, primarily due to those drive forms, being able to start leveling them higher sooner because of getting that final sooner, and also getting the wisdom form, giving him more drives to level as well. And does get a Twilight Town hint saying that Twilight Town has no path to light, not something that's going to matter. A vanilla Flare Force on Grim Reaper 2.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Now we very much want to see what Met does next.
Where does Met go? And is gonna go for Land of Dragons. I can't blame him. Like,
no.
From Met's perspective. Met thinking for a second, looking at what's available, deciding, is there somewhere better to go than here? And still deciding to go here.
Yeah.
I cannot blame Met. This is like it. Everything looks like it's probably LOD here. Disney Castle is just as possible. It's just as hinted, basically. But when you get that world unlock too, you want it to be that, because it means like your potential lead would be compounded by the fact that like you got a world unlock that maybe you got before your opponent. So this makes a lot of sense from Mett's perspective. It's just, unfortunately, as we know, absolutely the wrong move.
Yeah,
Now,
and like you said, it is from based on our information the wrong move, but based on Mett's information, this is the perfect storm, like you said, of compounding a lead if he feels like Double hasn't done all of Port Royal yet.
right. If that Sword of the Ancestor was not in Port Royal, I can almost guarantee Mett would have done Disney Castle. Like, Mett would have gone Disney Castle next. Like, could all but guarantee it. Because Disney Castle would be the next available potential proof location that Mett could go to and finish the world. Would not be able to finish Land of Dragons, would not be able to finish Olympus Coliseum, but would be able to finish Disney Castle. And when you have that, when you're kind of just trying to decide between a few locations, and one of them you can finish and the others you can't, you tend to more often choose the one that you can finish, especially if it's only a single visit, like Disney Castle. That is maybe the one thing that could have given Mett the edge here to pick Disney Castle instead of Land of Dragons, is making the realization that, hey, Disney Castle will end more quickly because it is a single visit, whereas Land of Dragons has 2 visits. But I really, like I said, I cannot blame Mett here at all.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this, Mett's probably going to be in bigger trouble because the fact that we know that anything hinted in LOD is in LOD too.
Yeah.
So
nothing can like eliminate LOD for him right here.
No, and Dewey just now going into STT. Yeah, this is. I think Dewey now does have a realistic lead.
And getting more, like going all the way through Land of Dragons 1 and with a hint to nothing, there being no path to the light here, and getting nothing through the entire first visit almost just like kind of bolsters your thought that the proof is here, because you're just like, oh, Land of Dragons 2 has the proof and nothing else in this world, and that's why there's no path to the light here. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it works in this case.
No, and I mean, it is like there are a lot of racers who very much eye roll worlds, especially after a world unlock, and if they see they get deep into a second visit, it is almost certainly over. Spike, it is on let money pouch check, so we're very quickly going to get this Beast Claw, and then I'm almost positive that Double is going to head straight.
Oh yeah, I at this point, Dewey definitely knows that Beast Castle has the proof piece. Dewey also just got their first money pouch,
yes.
Which kind of bails him out a little bit as well. And yeah, just got the Beast Claw and is now probably going to leave immediately from this save point, and that is the case. See him probably buy some ethers and then pop on over to Beast Castle, or even just dip straight into the world.
Yeah, and Mett's still here in the middle of minute fight again.
Yeah, and
it's a reasonable play, and this
absolutely.
is where the whole idea of rando be rando, like you have kind of a 50-50 here. This just, unfortunately, from what we know, isn't the correct one of the two choices, but I mean, Mett's been playing beautifully so far this season.
Well, what ultimately led to this disparity, because Dewey has done all of Land of Dragons 1, what led to this disparity here, the kind of, if we had to try to like pinpoint a like incorrect play, which is impossible to do in the bracket phase of this league, to be clear, like it's so hard. If nobody's making a full-on logic mistake, it's hard to say any play is straight up incorrect. But if we had to point to something from Mett's play so far, it would have to be the Hall of Bastion 2 visit, like going and completing the entire world, and then if nothing else, maybe should have turned back around and gone into core to make the world blue when it wasn't. But I'm sure from Mett's perspective, he's saying, well, it's just as likely it could be one of those datas, and I'll just waste my time in, or one of those super bosses, and I'll waste my time in core. I'm going to go to other stuff that matters more. perfectly valid.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that when Met went there, Met did not feel comfortable doing core skip. When Dewey went, he had the additional aerial dodge, did feel comfortable doing core skip, also had combo master, and that led to Dewey being able to eliminate Hollow Bastion entirely and not make that same time investment that Met did.
Yeah, and I mean, and then the other big thing is the biggest piece of information we got from this seed was that world that never was, that reflect just killing off the world, just immediately gave Dewey so much extra information. Because at this point, if Met has that reflect, Met would even know that it was Disney Castle.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing is that Dewey had already done all of LOD1 by that point, so like that specific play could have potentially evened out, but the Sword of the Ancestor showing up in Port Royal is what really did Met in there, and just really confirmed that he was for sure going to be coming to this world next.
Yeah.
Again, you could argue Disney Castle was maybe at that time, at the decision point, a slightly more optimal play to make because it is a shorter visit, but sometimes you're just trying to read the logic, you know? Sometimes you're trying to read the seed generation, and when you see that world unlock, you gotta follow it sometimes, and I totally get that.
Yeah, and then Double having just the perfect amount of stats going into final fights here. That magic stat being exactly where he wants it to be. The reflex, Reflera is going to be huge. This should be a pretty quick and clean final fights for Double, but
Yeah, it has explosion and everything too, and combo master and a finishing plus, I believe. I believe it's like finishing plus. So yeah, this should not be an issue for Dewey here. Unfortunately for Met, he'll be probably will have gotten through Storm Rider by the time Dewey finishes here. So Met will probably be in Disney Castle. But yeah, that is it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, yeah, Met will either be through Storm Rider, or if it's on Storm Rider or beyond, or will be out of the world because the world dies in Thorn.
Oh, true. Yeah. I think Met will probably be in like Windows or even Boat Pete while Dewey is finishing up. Or Met could surprise us and go to Olympus Coliseum next, but I don't expect that to happen. And yeah, there's a once more, turns the world blue, and Met has to bail. At this point, you got to be hoping your opponent made the same play, but unfortunately not the case for Met, and is actually gonna go to OC instead of Disney Castle. So this is probably at this point Met like making a bit of a meta play, saying, well, if it's Disney Castle, I lost, so I might as well go to Olympus Coliseum, hope the world unlock is just here or something, and that my opponent has been searching for it as well. That's what I can assume here. That's what I can guess, because yeah, you would expect your opponent has probably done the Disney Castle play by now. If you're giving your opponent, like the respect that anybody in the top 16 bracket has earned.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, based on the hint information that they have, I mean, OC is still a live world for connections on Met's tracker.
Yeah.
So
it absolutely is.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's just a lower priority in a perfect world because of the fact that you don't have the world unlock, whereas for Disney Castle, you don't need one. But again, this is a meta play. This is just assuming it needs to be Olympus or I've lost, and in Met's case, I mean, that's right. It will have unfortunately lost.
Yeah.
Both players playing astoundingly, though, in the execution department. Met having a little bit slower Zaldin fight from doing it significantly earlier in the seed than Dewey did, but both them deathless, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm, been able to tell, I don't think we saw any deaths.
You are correct. Both of them have been deathless. Both of them have been very clean and quick with most of their fights, unless, like you said, the Zaldin was purely because of stats, but it was very clean outside of that. Execution-wise, you couldn't have asked for a better, race in top 16 so far. It's just, it comes down to who ended up routing a little bit better, and Rando, I mean,
the routing comes down to your information that you get, and kind of what you decided for shotguns and what it ends up giving you.
Yeah, again, if we had to try to point at something from Met's play to be a bit of a questionable decision, I feel like the only thing you could really point at is that Hollow Bastion 2. Not going and doing Core first, or at the very least finishing it off after, but it's still only that's we're splitting hairs at that point. You know, like we're really being nitpicky at that point. There's plenty of reasons why it would make sense to just do the world as well. But yeah, we're going to see Dewey hopefully finishing things up here with a dome skip or something. Does get the cutscene here. Didn't quite have those reflex timed out in the right cadence. Nothing too major. I'm sure those nerves are hitting Dewey pretty big at the moment.
I don't know that was necessarily unintentional, because I do know from having spoken with Dewey that sometimes he will intentionally take that in order to set up this limit kill that he is going for.
But okay. This is a bit scary now because, yeah, sitting here in limit form, had to revert at a safe time to be able to go into a reflect, and now will he have enough damage? He's not going to have enough damage in the session. Ends it. There's the time for Dewey. Sub-hour on the loadless end, and Met just now seeing that his opponent has finished. Unfortunately, those plays did not pay off for Met, and probably going to go ahead and concede. Oh, yes, definitely conceding the victory here to their opponent. So Dewey going to move on here in the loser's bracket, knocked down in the first round by Adam, but then has battled through 2 matches so far, beating Lord Raiden and now Metthaios. Going to be heading on to the next match to face the winner of Darkensmith's next match. Darkensmith will be, still does not know who their opponent is yet. We'll be waiting for the match, the winner's bracket match between Walpy and Dragon Blast. But the winner of that, the loser of that match will face Darkensmith, and then the winner of that match will be Double's next opponent here. So GG's to both our players here. Yeah. Yuki, thank you for commentating with me. This is very fun.
I appreciate you having me here. I know that you're staying on for the second race currently. I am not at this point. I believe her Dez is going to be tagging in once we get to that second race. But the second race is going to be BD Bonk versus Jarrett Weak Strike. This should be a very interesting and another very high-powered matchup like we saw here with this first race.
Yeah, and that race is scheduled for 8 p.m. Eastern, so about an hour from now. However, I suspect that if both of the tournament participants here are ready to go early, that we probably will start early. So stay tuned, everybody. We're going to leave you with some beautiful music and a countdown timer as we prepare for that next match. We'll see you when that one starts.
Take care.